Welcome to the deep dive. You sent over some really interesting stuff this week, all about AI and how much energy it actually uses.
Yeah.
We've got this one article here from muckypaws.com. Is AI really the energy villain? I mean, that title alone kind of grabbed me, questioning what we often hear.
Absolutely. And thanks for flagging it because, the whole story around AI's energy footprint, it get pretty dramatic, can it?
Right.
So our mission here really is to unpack these sources, especially that monkey paws piece, and try to get a clearer, maybe more balanced view.
Yeah, see how it stacks up against like our everyday stuff.
Exactly. Our everyday digital habits. We want to cut through the noise a bit and see what really matters.
Yeah.
Data-wise.
Which brings us right to it, doesn't it? Is AI actually the big, bad energy villain everyone paints it as? Especially when you think about, I don't know, how much time I spend scrolling or streaming videos. That Mucky Paws article definitely makes you pause and think.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it's important, like right up front, the reviewer on Monkey Paws noted this. The article's kind of a thought piece.
Okay.
It's working with estimates, public data, and the actual energy numbers. They can swing quite a bit. Depends on your device, where you are, the power grid.
How optimized the software is.
Right, what's running in the background, all that stuff. So context is, well, it's everything here.
Okay, so let's really dig in then. What's the main argument Mucky Paws is making? What's their core point?
Okay, so the heart of it is this. AI, especially the text chat stuff like ChatGPT, it might not actually be the biggest energy hog out there. Not when you compare it to our sort of constant digital habits.
Like streaming and scrolling.
Exactly, like watching hours of YouTube, getting lost on TikTok. The article argues those things, the stuff we do almost automatically, probably use way more energy overall. They even have this quick summary, a TLDR, that hits it nicely. AI chat is usually turn-based. You ask, it answers, it uses energy for that, then it's kind of done.
Right, ephemeral.
Ephemeral, good word. Whereas streaming, that's persistent, it keeps going. And often it goes viral, right? So the same video gets sent out again and again, millions of times.
That turn-based versus persistent thing feels really important. And it connects to something else you sent the OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman, talking about politeness, saying, please costs energy. That sounds weird.
It does sound a bit strange on the surface, yeah. TechCrunch reported on it back in April 2025. Altman basically said that adding words like please or thank you to your prompts, well, they have a cost.
A computational cost.
Right. Because every word, or really every token, think of a token as like a word or part of a word, needs to be processed by the AI.
Okay, technically that makes sense. But Mucky Paws had a different angle on it, didn't they? They weren't saying, be rude to your AI.
No, not at all. Monkey Paws kind of flipped it. They suggested, well, if these extra polite words are using unnecessary energy, maybe the fix isn't changing how we talk.
But changing the text.
Exactly. Maybe better pre-processing of those tokens or something on the engineering side, rather than making users, consciously drop the pleasantries. It's a design question, too.
It did make me think, though, why are we polite to machines? The article mentioned a few possibilities.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot seems to just be habit, right? We're used to being polite, especially with voice assistants, maybe. Plus, maybe it reinforces our own empathy. We don't just switch that off. Some people might even be thinking, like, long-term, sci-fi style.
Yeah.
Be nice to the future AI overlords.
Or maybe just testing it, seeing what happens.
Or just for fun, yeah.
Could be any of those.
But getting back to the energy, polite or not, what's the actual cost compared to other stuff we do online? That turn-based idea seems critical here.
It really is. That single interaction versus the constant flow of video. Monkey Paws gives a stark example. A single ChatGPT reply, maybe around 0.3 watt hours.
Okay, tiny.
Seems tiny, yeah. Now, compare that to a 5-minute HD YouTube video. According to the IEA, that's about 12 watt hours. 12. Okay, that's 40 times more just for 5 minutes.
40 times more, yeah, for that one instance. But then the article talks about scale. What happens when that video gets, say, 10 million views?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the energy use just explodes. 10 million views times 12 watt hours. That's 120 million watt hours.
Wow.
Which the article calculates is like the energy needed for 400 million ChatGPT queries.
400 million. That really frames it differently.
It does. So while one AI chat is small, the repeated delivery of popular streaming content, that adds up incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And yes, some AI Like real-time translation might run constantly, but it's still different from that YouTube viral loop,
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you question where the real energy guzzlers are, not necessarily the newest tech.
Right.
The article even had a table, didn't it, comparing different digital tasks over like half an hour, what stood out there.
Yeah, that table's pretty revealing. So, okay, over 30 minutes, generating text with ChatGPT, maybe one prompt a minute, around 9 watt-hours. Double that for an hour, so 18.
So quite low.
Relatively, yeah. Now, making images with something like DALL-E, that jumps up. Around 58 watt-hours for 30 minutes.
Okay, noticeable increase.
Then audio generation, like Music LM, even higher. Maybe 150 watt-hours in 30 minutes.
Wow.
And then video generation. That's estimated as the biggest hitter. Somewhere between 180 and maybe even 600 watt-hours for just 30 minutes. Though they note there's a lot of variation there. Depends on the tool, the data. Like they mentioned a Synthesia case study.
600 watt-hours in half an hour. That's significant. And how did plain old YouTube streaming compare in that table?
Right. So YouTube HD streaming, based on that 12W per 5 minutes figure, it works out to about 144 watt-hours for 30 minutes.
So more than basic ChatGPT, more than image generation, similar to audio, but potentially less than complex video generation.
Exactly. And the interesting finding they pull out is that based on this data, just simple text-based AI chat looks like one of the most energy-efficient interactive things we do online per hour for us as individuals. But, and it's an important but, they do add the caveat. Continuous AI running in big companies, enterprise stuff, that could be a different story in terms of total energy.
That makes sense, which leads to another really crucial point they stressed. The difference between training these AI models versus just using them. Inference, they called it.
Yes. Absolutely. Critical distinction. And often gets muddled, I think.
So training is?
Training is the initial heavy lifting. Building the model like GPT-4, feeding us just mind-boggling amounts of data, needs massive compute power, thousands of GPUs running 247 for weeks, maybe months.
Okay, that sounds incredibly energy intensive.
It is. Millions of kilowatt hours. It's infrequent, usually centralized, though they do mention fine-tuning, which adds smaller ongoing training costs for some models. Think of it like building the AI's brain initially.
Got it. Big upfront cost. And inference.
Inference is us actually using that brain. Asking ChatGPT a question, generating text, making an image, that's way, way lighter.
How much lighter?
We're talking fractions of a watt-hour per query. It happens in real time, it's spread out wherever people are using it, and the energy cost is basically tied directly to how much you use it.
The article had a good analogy for this, right? Something about a power station.
Yeah, exactly. They compared training the AI model to building a power station.
Yeah.
Huge energy investment up front.
Right.
But you wouldn't blame the entire construction cost of the power station on every single light bulb it powers, would you?
No, of course not.
Same idea with AI. The training is massive, yes.
Yeah.
GPT-3 training, for instance, was estimated around 1,287 megawatt hours.
Okay.
But using GPT-4 for one query, inference, estimates are somewhere like 0.05 to 0.3 watt-hours, maybe even less if it's optimized.
Watt-hours versus megawatt-hours, that's orders of magnitude difference.
Exactly. So just focusing on those massive training numbers gives a really skewed picture of the energy cost of you or me just asking the AI a question.
Okay, that's super important. So the headlines about training energy can be misleading for everyday use. But the article didn't let social media off the hook, did it? It talked about hidden costs there, too.
No, definitely not. Because while an AI chat uses energy for that brief moment of inference, the social media platforms, they're built on an always-on model.
Always delivering content.
Right. Whether you're actively scrolling or the app's just open in the background, their servers are constantly working, pushing content, refreshing feeds, running algorithms to figure out what to show you next.
And that constant background hum times billions of users.
Adds up to a massive amount of energy consumption that we don't always think about. It's kind of invisible.
They had another table comparing different platforms, right? Like TikTok versus YouTube versus just browsing Facebook.
Yeah, and that one really highlights the always-on impact. TikTok, for example, with all those high-res videos auto-playing, estimates were wild, like 1,250 to 2,500 watt-hours per user for just 30 minutes.
Seriously, that high?
Yeah, pretty staggering if those estimates are close. YouTube HD streaming, again, maybe 180 to 360 watt-hours for 30 minutes.
Still significant.
Definitely. And even just browsing Facebook or Instagram, scrolling through feeds with videos and images loading, plus the AI in the background choosing what you see, estimated between 60 and 100 watt-hours in half an hour.
Okay, so compare that again to the ChatGPT estimate. 9 watt-hours for 30 minutes.
Right. The contrast is pretty stark. It really makes you reconsider where the bulk of your personal digital energy footprint might be coming from.
Wow. So that quick scroll through TikTok, it might seem harmless, but multiplied by everyone doing it constantly, it's a huge energy draw.
Exactly. And yes, these platforms use clever tech like CDNs, caching, to deliver stuff efficiently. But it's the sheer volume, the scale, and the sort of continuous, maybe even addictive nature of the feed that drives up the total energy use.
The article used another analogy there, didn't it? AI as a calculator.
Yeah, AI inference is like a live calculator doing a specific job when asked. Social media. More like a massive broadcasting service, constantly transmitting data everywhere, all the time.
And it wasn't just social media, right? The article briefly mentioned other big energy users online.
Right, just touched on them. Things like cloud gaming, streaming a whole game in real time.
Yeah.
That can use a lot, maybe 1.8 to 3.2 kilowatt hours per hour.
Kilowatt hours, okay.
Live streaming like Twitch, or video conferencing like Zoom, or Teams, which we all use a lot now, maybe half to 1 kilowatt hour per person.
So it's quite high.
And then there's just the underlying stuff. The algorithms sorting our feeds, the massive data centers powering everything, the energy for cooling them, backup.
The invisible infrastructure.
Exactly. There was a great quote. It's not just what we use, it's what we leave running. Really makes you think about all the energy being used, even when we're not actively clicking.
That's a powerful point. So it feels like the whole picture is way more complex than just AI bad for energy.
Absolutely. That's the main thrust. We need nuance. Knee-jerk alarmism without context isn't helpful. Yes, AI has an energy footprint. Development needs to be responsible, efficient, but we shouldn't isolate it as the only villain, while maybe ignoring the huge ongoing energy costs of things we've been doing for years.
And the article had some questions to help us think about this more critically.
Yeah, good questions. Like, what value are we actually getting per watt consumed for different activities?
Value per watt. Interesting.
Can we cut down waste in the infrastructure, in software design? Are comparisons fair? Are they based on good evidence, considering the scale?
Right.
And also, don't forget the potential upside of AI. What benefits can it bring, instead of just focusing only on the cost?
Good points. And finally, there was that bit about geography mattering. The carbon footprint isn't the same everywhere.
Crucial point. The carbon intensity, basically, how much CO2 is produced per unit of electricity, varies massively depending on how a region makes its power.
Like hydro versus coal.
Exactly. So a data center running on hydropower in, say, Norway, much lower carbon footprint per calculation than the same data center in a place heavily reliant on coal. Websites like electricitymap.org actually show this in real time.
So where the AI is running matters just as much as that it's running.
Precisely. It's another layer of complexity in figuring out the real environmental impact.
Okay, wow. This has definitely added a lot more texture to the conversation. It's clearly not a simple picture.
Not at all. The big takeaway is just that. It's complex. AI is part of the digital energy puzzle, for sure. But its role needs to be seen in proportion, compared carefully to everything else we do online.
It certainly makes me think twice about my own habits, you know, the endless scrolling, the autoplay videos.
Me too. And maybe that leads to a final question for everyone listening.
Yeah.
If we think about the value we get from different digital things, where should we focus our efforts for a more sustainable digital future? Is getting information efficiently via AI maybe a better energy investment than hours of passive entertainment, for example? Something to chew on.
That is definitely something to think about. Well, if this deep dive got you thinking, we really recommend checking out that monkeypaws.com article. We'll link it in the show notes, along with the other sources we mentioned. Lots more detail in there if you want to dig deeper yourself.